What does a person do when the world ends in a single heartbeat and they cannot even find their voice to scream? The distant echo of a gunshot still hung over Red Bluff, Colorado, as Clara Galloway knelt in the dust of the main street. Her father's pocket watch trembled in her hands, the ticking cold and steady while her own heart felt frozen. Her cream-colored dress was already stained with his blood. The morning sun spread soft gold over the town, but to Clara it felt cruel, almost mocking, shining on a world that no longer made sense. Josiah Galloway, her last family, her last anchor, lay still beside her. Red Bluff had been unkind to them since the day they arrived, but nothing had hurt like this. Clara's mother had died of sickness years ago, and her father had uprooted them, chasing hope in the Colorado territory. Now that hope was gone, taken with the crack of a bullet fired by Elias Walton, the ruthless cattle baron who controlled nearly everything in the county. Someone called out to her from above, "Miss." Clara didn't move. The sound reached her from far away, like she was underwater. Her body was numb, her throat locked tight. She couldn't speak, couldn't cry, couldn't breathe. "Miss, you can't stay here in the street," the voice said again, closer now. Still, she didn't answer. A shadow fell across her, blocking the sun. A man knelt beside her. She felt the presence more than she saw him. Rough, calloused hands reached toward her father's body. Instinctively, she tightened her grip. "I'm not taking him from you," the man said softly, "but we need to move him. Let me help." His voice was steady, low, kind in a way she hadn't heard since her mother's passing. For the first time, Clara lifted her eyes. He was a stranger. Dust from the trail clung to his clothes. A weathered Stetson sat pushed back on his head, revealing dark hair curling at the edges. His face was suntanned, a short beard shading a strong jaw, but it was his eyes that held her, a deep blue, filled with a quiet compassion that didn't belong in this harsh place. "My name is Lucas Nash," he said. "I'm going to help you take care of him properly." Clara said nothing. She couldn't. Lucas motioned to another man, and together they lifted her father with care. Clara tried to stand, but her legs buckled. She swayed, the world tilting. Lucas turned to his companion. "Take him to the undertaker's." Then he looked at Clara, and instead of walking away, he lowered himself into the dust beside her and sat. He didn't touch her, didn't try to make her speak, didn't tell her to be strong. He simply sat with her in silence. Minutes, maybe hours passed. Clara's mind floated somewhere far away, caught between shock and grief. People walked past on the wooden sidewalks. Some stared, others turned away. But Lucas stayed. When the sun shifted and shadows stretched long, he finally spoke. "Is there someone I can take you to? Any family?" Clara shook her head faintly. "A place where you're staying?" Another small nod. Lucas rose slowly, brushing dust from his pants. "I'm going to help you up now." His voice was gentle, steady, not commanding, just offering. She didn't respond, but he didn't wait. He placed his hands under her elbows and guided her to her feet. Her legs trembled. She leaned on him without meaning to. "Point the way," he said. Clara lifted a weak hand, gesturing toward the small boarding house at the edge of town. Lucas kept one hand lightly at her elbow, matching his steps to her slow, uneven ones. When they reached the boarding house, Mrs. Abernathy opened the door before they even knocked. The stern widow's expression softened when she saw Clara. "Oh, child," she whispered, "come inside." Lucas guided Clara up the stairs. When they reached her room, he moved to step out. That was when Clara's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. Surprising even herself, she held tight. Her eyes, red-rimmed and hollow, begged a simple plea. "Don't leave me alone," Lucas understood. He nodded and took a seat in the corner chair. "I'll stay," he said gently. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, still clutching her father's pocket watch. The room fell into a quiet so soft the ticking sounded loud. The hours slid by. Tea arrived and grew cold. The sky outside faded from blue to orange to black. Lucas never pressured her to speak. He didn't fill the silence. He didn't fuss. He simply stayed. When dawn crept in through the window, Clara had not slept. Her eyes tracked the changing light on the ceiling. Lucas had drifted only lightly in the chair, waking whenever she shifted. Mrs. Abernathy brought breakfast, biscuits and coffee. Clara sat up, reaching with a trembling hand. When her fingers brushed Lucas's, she felt warmth for the first time since the gunshot. She took a sip of coffee. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice hoarse and fragile. Lucas didn't look surprised she had finally spoken. He simply nodded. "You're welcome." "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Because I know what sudden loss feels like," Lucas answered quietly. "And because no one should face it alone." Clara looked down at the watch in her hands, her father's last gift to her. She swallowed hard. "My father," she said, each word heavy. "They shot him in the street like he was nothing." "Walton's men," Lucas said grimly. Clara nodded. The anger in her chest burned hotter than her grief. "He did it because we wouldn't sell our claim. It's all we had left." Quote. Lucas's jaw tightened. "Walton owns the sheriff. The council. Too many people here are afraid of him." "And you?" Clara asked, her voice raw. Lucas met her gaze. "No," he said. "I don't fear him." "Why not?" "Because I've seen men like him before. They think they're untouchable. But every man has a weakness." Clara's heart beat unsteadily. The grief was still overwhelming. But now there was something else. A spark, a starting point, a shift. She did not know what would come next, but for the first time since the gunshot, she did not feel entirely alone. Clara held the warm coffee cup between her hands, the rising steam brushing her face as if trying to breathe life back into her. Lucas sat across from her, patient and steady, watching without pressing. She felt weaker than she ever had, but there was something in his presence that kept her from falling apart again. The silence between them was no longer empty. It held meaning. Safety, understanding. "I need to arrange my father's burial," Clara said finally. "I'll help you," Lucas replied without hesitation. They left the boarding house together. Clara walked slowly, each movement heavy, but Lucas stayed close, matching her pace. The street felt too bright, too exposed, but his presence gave her just enough courage to keep going. When they reached the undertaker's building, a dark green structure with fading paint, the air inside was cool and quiet. Mr. Gillespie greeted them with a solemn nod. "Miss Galloway," he said gently, "your father has been prepared." His suit was cleaned and pressed. "I thought it best to place him in the viewing room." Clara followed him with Lucas at her side. When she saw her father lying peacefully in the pine coffin, the breath caught in her throat. He looked almost like he always had. Tired, lined with worry, but familiar. The only difference was the stillness that chilled her to her core. Her hand reached toward his, but she pulled back at the coldness. "When can we bury him?" she asked softly. "Tomorrow morning," Mr. Gillespie answered. 10 o'clock, the pastor is ready." Clara nodded. Relief and pain swirled together inside her. "I'll be there," Lucas said quietly. She turned to look at him. His steady blue eyes held no pity, just support. Something inside her eased. They left the undertaker and walked toward the boarding house. As they neared the main street, a sudden commotion drew Clara's attention. Dust rose as a group of riders approached. At their head was Elias Walton. Clara froze. The cattle baron swung off his horse with theatrical calm, brushing dust from his expensive coat. His thick mustache twitched into a false smile when he saw Clara. "Miss Galloway," he called. "A word." Lucas stepped in front of her without thinking. A warning. Walton approached slowly. "I wanted to express my condolences, truly. A misunderstanding led to your father's unfortunate passing." Clara's grief sharpened into anger. "You murdered him," she said, her voice trembling but strong. A flicker of irritation passed Walton's eyes before he smoothed his expression. Now. Tragic accidents happen. The West is unpredictable." "He never carried a gun," Clara snapped. "Everyone knows that." Walton shrugged. "Nevertheless, I'm here to offer you a generous price for the claim. More than fair." "She's in mourning," Lucas said coldly. This isn't the time. Walton looked Lucas over with disgust. Nash, is it? I've heard about you. A drifter sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Lucas didn't move. Her answer is no. Clara stepped forward. My father died protecting our land. I won't hand it to the man who killed him. Walton's jaw tightened. My offer stands until sunset tomorrow. After that, the price drops. A young woman alone won't last long out there. Lucas's hand hovered close to his gun. Leave, Lucas said quietly. Walton smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He tipped his hat, turned, and mounted his horse. Clara let out a shaky breath. Lucas put a steady hand on her arm. Are you all right? No, she whispered. But I will be. He walked her back to the boarding house, not letting go until she was safely inside her room. But when he turned to leave again, Clara suddenly panicked. Lucas, she whispered, grabbing his sleeve. He stopped. Don't leave. He nodded, understanding her fear without needing words. I'll stay. That night, he sat in the chair again while she lay on top of the quilt, too tired to undress, too broken to sleep. Every now and then, she heard Lucas shift, but he never complained. The room felt safer because he was in it. Dawn came. Breakfast followed. And slowly, Clara found her voice again. When the time came for the funeral, she dressed carefully in a dark dress and the bonnet Lucas had brought her. She still didn't know why he had been so kind, but the gesture meant more than she could say. They walked together to the small church. Clara expected only a few people, but a surprising number stood waiting. Miners, townsfolk, shopkeepers, people who had known her father, people who cared. Pastor Williams spoke kind words. The coffin was lowered. Clara's hands trembled. Lucas took one gently. You don't have to watch, he whispered. I do, she said. For him, quote. The dirt hit the coffin with a hollow thud, but she didn't look away. When it was over, the people came to offer their condolences. Clara nodded politely, her voice quiet, her heart aching. But when the crowd thinned, she turned to Lucas. I'm not selling the claim, she said. Not to Walton. Lucas nodded. Then he'll come after you. I know. Then you won't face him alone, he said. She looked up at him, really looked, and for the first time since her father fell, she felt the tiniest spark of strength return. They walked back to the boarding house side by side, no words needed. But Clara sensed something had changed, something growing, something unexpected, something she wasn't ready to name yet. Inside her room, Lucas reached for the door to leave. Lucas, she said softly. He turned. Thank you for everything. He gave a small, warm smile. I'm not going anywhere. Clara believed him, but neither of them knew that Walton's eyes were already watching, already planning his next move. And nothing in Red Bluff was going to stay quiet for long. The days after the funeral passed in a blur. Clara barely slept, barely ate, but she forced herself to move with purpose. She had made her decision, and now she stood by it. Her father's claim would not fall into Elias Walton's hands. Not while she still breathed. Lucas stayed close, giving her space when she needed it, stepping in when she faltered. His steady presence had become something she depended on more than she wanted to admit. Each morning she woke to the sound of him pacing the hallway, keeping watch. Each night she found comfort, knowing he was just across the room. But Walton was not idle. One morning, as Clara and Lucas walked into town for supplies, she noticed people glancing around nervously. Whispers followed them. What's happened? Clara asked a shopkeeper. His eyes darted toward the saloon. Walton's angry. Said you embarrassed him in front of half the town. He's looking to make an example. Clara's heart clenched. Lucas stepped closer, a protective shadow at her side. We planned for this, Lucas murmured. You're not alone. But Clara knew Walton. He didn't forgive. And he didn't forget. That afternoon, while checking the papers her father had left behind, Clara discovered it. The truth that made everything clear. Their claim held the only reliable water source within miles. Water Walton needed to expand his cattle empire. The water rights meant more than land. They meant power. No wonder he killed him, Clara whispered. Her hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the documents. Let me see. Lucas took them gently, scanning each page. When he looked up, his jaw was tight, his eyes dark with anger. He murdered your father for this, he said quietly, for control. Clara's throat tightened. She felt the grief rising again, hot and sharp. Then suddenly there were hoofbeats, fast and many. Lucas grabbed his gun. Get down. Men thundered down the road, dust rising in thick clouds. Walton's riders. Clara's breath caught as they stopped in front of the boarding house. Walton wasn't with them. But his message was clear. One man shouted, "Tell the Galloway girl she has until sunset to sign the claim over, or the next grave in Red Bluff will be hers." Lucas moved in front of Clara instinctively, shielding her with his body. "Get inside," he whispered. But Clara's fear turned into something else. Anger. Fierce, burning anger. "No," she said. "I'm tired of being scared. Tired of running." Lucas turned to her, surprised. "You can't fight Walton alone," he said. "You know that." Clara straightened, clutching her father's pocket watch in her hand. "Then I won't be alone." By sunrise, Clara and Lucas had left the boarding house and were riding toward her father's claim. If Walton wanted to push her off the land, he would have to face her there. Her father's cabin was worn but sturdy, sitting beside the clear stream that had caused so much trouble. Clara dismounted and touched the wooden wall, her chest tightening. "He loved this place," she whispered. Lucas placed a hand on her shoulder. "And we'll defend it." "We." The words settled in her heart like a warm ember. Inside the cabin, they took stock of tools, supplies, and anything they could use to protect themselves. Lucas checked every window and door, counting bullets, planning escape routes. Clara watched him, struck by the quiet strength he carried. "You've been through this before," she said softly. Lucas paused. His shoulders stiffened. 2 years ago, a man like Walton wanted my water rights too." Clara swallowed. "Your wife?" He nodded. "I wasn't there in time to save her." Clara's heart twisted. Gently, she moved closer, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry." Lucas looked at her, pain flickering behind his eyes. "I won't let it happen again." Just before noon, they heard riders approaching. Nearly a dozen. Walton had come. Clara stood on the porch, Lucas beside her. Her hands trembled, but her gaze was steady. Walton rode to the front, smiling like a man who already believed he had won. "Miss Galloway," he drawled, "I warned you once. Time to settle this." "You murdered my father," Clara said, her voice stronger than she felt. "You won't take this land." Walton laughed. "You think you can stop me? A girl and a drifter?" Lucas stepped forward. "Try it." Quote. Walton raised a hand, and his men reached for their guns. Clara's heart pounded. Then, shouting, and footsteps. From the trail came miners, ranchers, townsfolk, dozens of them, men who'd worked with her father, people who'd been silent for too long but were silent no more. They formed a line behind Clara and Lucas. Davies, the miner, shouted, "You want her claim? You'll go through all of us." Walton's smile faded. The standoff stretched like a drawn wire. Clara stepped forward, her voice clear. "You've bullied this town long enough. No more." Walton's eyes darted between the crowd and Lucas's steady gun. For the first time, he saw the truth. He was outnumbered and outmatched. Finally, with a sneer, he jerked his reins. "This isn't over." He turned his horse, his men following reluctantly. As they disappeared down the trail, Clara's knees nearly buckled. Lucas caught her before she fell. "It's over," he whispered. "No," Clara murmured, "but we've won the first fight." He held her close, his hand warm on her back. She leaned into him, letting the fear drain away. "You were brave today," Lucas said softly, "braver than anyone I've known." "I wasn't alone," Clara whispered. Lucas brushed a strand of hair from her face, and the movement stirred something deep inside her, warm, soft, unexpected. "I'm not leaving you," Lucas said, his voice low. "Not now, not ever, unless you ask me to." Clara's breath trembled. She looked up at him. "I don't want you to leave." Lucas's expression softened. His thumb brushed her cheek. The world fell quiet. Even the stream seemed to hold its breath. Slowly, gently, he pulled her closer. And when his lips finally touched hers, Clara felt the first real peace she had known since the gunshot that shattered her world. Clara had lost her family, but she had found something new, something strong, something that felt like hope.